and continue on. I need your permission to record it. So, and feel free to turn your cameras off if you'd like. That's fine. I don't mind at all. Okay, so I'll go ahead and get started. First, I'll tell you all a little bit about me before I tell you about the program. So my name is Dr. April Birch, and this is going to be my 10th year at Berkshire, the next academic year, which seems impossible to me that I've been here for 10 years, but time flies when you're having fun. So that is indeed true. I grew up in Louisiana, and I have gone all over the country doing my academic endeavors. I did my PhD out in Arizona, and then did my postdoc at the University of Connecticut Health Center, where I studied herpes simplex viruses and the cell biology around those infections. So it was very basic science, basic research. When I say basic, I don't mean simple, but I mean just like foundational knowledge around herpes viruses. And before, so my graduate work was also in virology, but on bacteriophage systems, so little viruses that infect bacteria that have shaped evolution over the years. So I have a really strong virology background, microbiology, because of my postdoc, cell biology, and all of that will become relevant in a minute when you start learning about some of the projects that we've done here on campus. But because my background is really focused on molecular biology, I can really support a lot of those types of works here on campus. So as I said, it's my 10th year here at Berkshire. Before coming to Berkshire, I had my own research lab. So after leaving the University of Connecticut Health Science Center, I joined the Wadsworth Center, which is the New York State Department of Health. It's their basic research institute. And I had a lab there studying herpes simplex virus and oxidative stress and cell biology related to that. For about 8 years, I mentored students in the Berkshire School AMSR program in my lab, and that's how I became familiar with the program. Fun fact, my husband did graduate from Berkshire, and we do live in the area. He has a real estate company in the area, and we always joked before I came to Berkshire that wouldn't it be funny if Berkshire had this like amazing research program and you could just work, 10 miles away from our house, because I was commuting to Albany for 8 years, which was about an hour and a half away. So that was our little joke. And then, but it actually happened. So during my 8th year of having my lab, Berkshire School approached me with this idea of having a lab based on campus. So as I mentioned before, I had mentored students in my lab. So that before coming to Berkshire, that was the model. So students interested in doing science research were shipped and bused off campus in the afternoons to do research in labs in surrounding areas. So what you may not know is that Berkshire is in the middle of, Berkshire School's in the middle of the Berkshires, which is a very rural and remote area. There are not very many research institutions around. So that type of model meant that students were doing a lot of traveling. So once we were able to have a program on campus, Berkshire was basically courageous enough to recruit a research scientist to run that program. So that's what I've been doing here for the last 10 years. And it's so much fun to get to work with students on all types of projects. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about some of those. So let me switch over to, I'm just going to share my screen. And so like I said, if you want to put it in speaker view and then side-by-side mode, you'll be able to see me. Not that you don't have to see me, but if you want to see me, you can put it in side-by-side mode and that will work really well. So I'm going to share my screen, and then I'm going to go to this little presentation that I have here. Okay, so I hope you all can see that. Maybe give me a thumbs up if you can see it. Can you see that? Okay, great, awesome. So, so here is a picture of our beautiful campus. Oh, thanks, Tate, for that emoji. I see that. So what you can see is that, our beautiful campus is really just like situated in the foothills of the Berkshires, which is quite beautiful. And as I mentioned, very remote. So one of the main reasons that we developed this program on campus was because of our remote environment. And when we had the the funding to create this building, this Math Science Research Center, research. Basically, the lab is in this building. But when we had the funding to create this building, the faculty and administration at the time wanted to design a research lab to be a cornerstone of our science and math academic experience at Berkshire. So this is the building where the lab is. If you haven't been to campus, it sits right along top of, it's at the top of Buck Valley, and it's really beautiful. It overlooks Buck Valley. It's a great space. So the mission of the program is to learn science by doing science. And what that actually means is that students are developing their curiosity, their integrity, learning how to fail, learning how to respond to failure, how to work as a group. Some projects are group projects, and also learning how to respect their peers and their there's classmates who may have other types of research projects, and helping them along the way. So we actually touch on all of the core values for Berkshire Schools mission in the AMSR program, but we're learning science by doing science. So here's a panoramic view of the Advanced Math Science Research Lab. So if you were to come to campus and enter the building that you saw a couple of slides ago, and you turn left, this is the first room that you see on the tour. So it is an amazing space, and I basically modeled this space when I came to campus. This space is modeled after my research lab that I had in Albany. So what you'll notice is that we've got all of the major equipment that you would find in a research lab. Sorry, this is a little small in the back to see, but basically there's all of this equipment that allows students to be able to do high-level research on campus. So in addition to having incubators, shakers, centrifuges, electron microscopes, fluorescence microscopy, we can do that here on campus. We have a -80 freezer here on campus, and fun fact, Sunday, we packed that freezer up and sent it to our local hospital so they can store vaccine for our area. So that vaccine is arriving today at Fairview Hospital. So we're lending our -80 freezer out to our local hospital for a couple of months until theirs comes in. So so we are able to accomplish a lot of high-level research on campus by using what's called model systems. So model systems are organisms that have been very well characterized, that are cheap to work with. They grow really fast, they're easy to work with. And some examples are listed here. So little roundworms called C. elegans. We work with bacteriophage, so viruses that infect bacteria. We work with yeast that have maybe molecular switches where they turn red or green depending on some kind of environment. We work with Drosophila, so fruit flies, and we do all kinds of things with all of these different model organisms. Here's a little bit of a close-up of the two pieces of equipment that were hard to see in the previous video. So we have a transmission electron microscope that allows us to look at very, very fine detail in samples that are either liquid or solid, derived from some type of experiment that a student has done. Okay, let me admit them. And then we also have an EVOS microscope, which is a microscope that allows, it's a teaching scope, so it actually has this screen attached to it. It allows us to look at molecules that are fluorescently tagged in cells. So here's an image of cells where the nuclei are stained in blue. You have some other staining in red, and then actin is, I forget what the red is actually, it may be endoplasmic reticulum, and then the green is actin that's staining throughout the cell. So we can do a lot of cell biology just by having this little instrument here. Last year, we were able to acquire a thin section ultramicrotome, which this machine, the transmission electron microscope, can look at liquid samples, but we were never able to look at tissue samples until we had this machine. So an ultramicrotome is basically a tiny knife. So you can think of it that way. So what this little piece of glass right here, if you can see that over the red, this is a piece of glass that will cut through this sample here. So if you look at this gold nugget here in the upper right, this is an epoxy resin that's been embedded where fruit flies have been embedded. So last fall we had some students doing some dissections of fruit flies. So this is the fruit fly body, this is the head, and this is the spinal cord. So we're able to analyze different parts of these model organisms that we work with. So basically you embed those samples in the epoxy and then you slice them on the knife or on a diamond knife if you have one of those. We have glass knives here on campus. And then the slices float onto water. So you can see these slices here just floating on water. And then you pick those slices up and you put them on a little grid and look at them under the electron microscope. So it's instruments like this that allow students to really conduct high level research. They're asking very sophisticated questions here on campus, and Berkshire School provides all of the infrastructure for students to do that work. So, okay, so the program itself is usually open to juniors and seniors. So students would be selected after their sophomore year, typically, unless the student is a repeat student and they're coming in as a sophomore and they've already had certain level science classes that would set them up for success in the AMSR program. But typically students apply after their sophomore year. They're placed in the program and we have some discussions about what they're interested in working on. If it's a project that I feel like I could support here on campus, I will work with that student directly. But we have a really strong mentor network, which you'll see a little bit more about in a second. And so students who are interested in things beyond my area of expertise, like engineering, computer science, neurobiology, we'll have those students connected with a mentor. So most of the work is done on campus in our amazing facility here. The students come to AMSR during their class block, so it's actually embedded into their academic day rather than just being in the afternoon as the prior structure was. So because it's embedded into the academic day, and you can also do an afternoon season of AMSR, students can accumulate hundreds of hours of research and experience in the lab. So this model is not only attractive for scholars who want to dive deep into their project, and that's their only passion. It's also attractive for student athletes. So students who may have academic or athletic commitments in the afternoon, they're able to work on their projects during the academic day. So before we were missing those high-level scholar athletes because they weren't able to give up an afternoon to travel to a lab off-site. So because we're on site, we're able to do all of this work in-house. So students who are paired with mentors that don't work here, they meet with them over Zoom and as needed. But really, I help the students accomplish their stuff, their research on a day-to-day basis here on campus. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so just an example of some of the students that are some of the mentors that that students have worked with over the years. Just an example of some of the topics that they have studied over the years, just to demonstrate to you that we do have this strong mentor network that we've developed over the last 10 years. Some of our mentors are in industry. So we have a really strong partnership with Sikorsky, which is now called Lockheed Martin, down in Connecticut, and we've had several students rotate with engineers at Lockheed Martin to answer small questions in, say, like the vibration of a rotor. So a student would develop a model here on campus using math, physics, 3D printing, all those sorts of things, a model to test like weight distribution on a rotor, or how rare earth magnets help settle vibration that may be happening in a rotor. So that's a really nice partnership that we've had over the years. Students will present their work. So one of the culminating events in AMSR is called Arise, which is our public exhibition that happens every year when we don't have a pandemic. That was a poster session that happened a couple of years ago, where students are presenting their work to the community, to parents, to mentors that visit. Some students have traveled to regional ASM meetings to present their work. And we even had one student who went down to a cryo-EM microscopy meeting down at Penn State, because he had worked with one of the mentors down at Penn State, and she wanted him to present to their local at their local meeting. I mentioned that there's a winter afternoon AMSR program. So that usually happens in the winter. This year it happened in the fall because of our altered schedule. But basically there's a project that we accomplish every winter that's either from a mentor that travels to us from a university to train us to do a particular project. We had a local mentor here a couple of years ago, where we were analyzing the microbes that are present in apiaries. So he was bringing us material from his beehives, and we were sorting and analyzing all of those organisms. Sometimes we make liquid nitrogen ice cream here on campus. We do a little bit fun art. This is the Berkshire School logo with bacteria and bacteriophage. And students learn how to use pretty high level equipment, because we bring in people to train the students to learn how to use equipment. So this is a picture of students from last year learning how to use the ultramicrotome. We had a rep from Leica come out and train us. Some of that work actually ends up getting published. So we had, so this group here who's working on this, they're working really hard here. They didn't know I was taking a picture. And this is Dr. Fain here. So that work culminated in a publication out of Dr. Fain's lab. So this was the Winter AMSR group that worked on that project. These are other publications that have happened with students working with off-campus mentors. So there is that possibility that students can end up having a publication while they're in high school, and that's just amazing. Like, I can't even imagine what that feels like to start your career off that way. And then some students who are two-year members of the program and they've done a really nice research project can submit that work to national science competitions. The big one is called Regeneron Science Talent Search. And we usually enter that every year. We had 4 students enter this year, 3 last year. And we've had 11 semifinalists for Berkshire School in the past 11 years. So we have a really nice record of success with that program. We've never had a finalist, so I'm still looking for that student to come in and get that finalist position. But it's a really fun way for students to pull their work together. This competition is basically like putting together three college applications all at once. So it's a really big deal for students to accomplish it. And it happens in the fall of their senior year, which is already so busy. So I hope that that gives you kind of a flavor of what's happening in AMSR. You can follow us on Instagram at Berkshire School AMSR if you'd like. I share a lot of our news and things that are happening in the lab via that way. And also the newsletters are a great way to stay connected. So those are always published on our signature page website. So you can always go there. And I usually try to send out emails periodically. I don't want to bomb people with email, but it's nice to stay connected so that people know what we're up to. Because it's so much, there's so much exciting work that's happening on campus. So I'm going to stop sharing. I hope that kind of gives you a flavor of the capabilities that we have here on campus and some of the equipment. I didn't really talk about any of the projects, but I'm happy to discuss some of that or answer specific questions if you have them. So please feel free to unmute yourself. If you need to log off and go to class, I know there's some students on the call, and it will be recorded, so you won't miss anything. You can always just um, come back in or check out the video that'll be posted on the website.
Quick question for you.
Sure.
Thank you. That's a fantastic presentation. Amazing work you've done putting this lab together. It's really
Thank you so
amazing
much.
for a high school facility. What is the path like from freshman, sophomore to the application in the program? What does that look like?
Okay, so so the path is that that students would come in and basically take you know, the classes that they would normally take at Berkshire. So usually biology, then advanced chemistry. So I do like to see that you're on the advanced track. Students who have already had biology, who may be coming into Berkshire with that credential already, will start, if they're starting as a freshman, they'll start in advanced chemistry. And then as a sophomore, if they've done well in advanced chemistry, they can go right into AP chemistry as a sophomore. And then usually when they're accepted into AMSR, they're still taking science classes. So usually, actually, there's not a student this year who's only taking AMSR and no other science class. So they're continuing with that science education alongside. But to enter the AMSR program, you really have to have had at least advanced chemistry, biology, and then if you're coming in to do an engineering project, I really like that those students have had engineering here at Berkshire before. So there are some things that can set a student up for success, but I really, at least if they're coming in to do a biology project, at least advanced chemistry and AP would be even better. It just is less that they have to,
So if your track is more the computer science and engineering, then there is a underclass engineering curriculum.
Correct. There's an engineering class, there's advanced engineering, there's computer science. What I found, what my experience has been is that students who are interested in computer science have usually already taught themselves over, you know, because of that interest, they've been able to teach themselves quite a bit. So I don't require them to have had the computer science class here because they've usually already they've self-taught computer science. So that would be totally fine. And I will say that so students typically will take another science alongside of AMSR. We've had students who are coming in, say, at mid-year, sometimes that happens. They will do an independent study on a project that they want to do in AMSR the year prior. So I've had some students who maybe they're not ready for whatever reason to enter the program, but I'll work with them in an independent study capacity to get sort of a jump start on that. So I know a mid-year student coming in this year who I'll work with from January to May to kind of get started. And then they'll enter the program in the fall full time.
Hi,
Mike.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, you go. No, you can go. You can go.
Okay, thank you. I have a question that I'm recently working on an experiment in China, and I'm curious about that if students can continue the experiment that they're previously doing, can they develop more on it?
Right. So I have had students continue work that they have started outside of lab here in the lab. A lot of students that I have found that have been able to be connected with research labs in China or in the States or wherever, sometimes they're working with model organisms that are beyond what we can do here on campus. So if you're working on mouse models, that's a little challenging to do here on campus, but a lot of that work, so some of the work on mouse models is analyzing tissues that are derived from mice that have been treated in a certain way. So we could certainly receive samples from the research lab here on campus. We could prep them in the ultramicrotome and look at them more detail here. So there are ways that we can continue work on model organisms that we may not be able to support here on campus, but there are creative ways that we can continue that work. And with so much of the, some of the behavioral science projects are videos of mice. And so students will have to watch video and record certain behaviors of those mice. Those mice here. So it kind of depends, but the goal, it's always great when a student comes in with their own project or their own mentor. So I really try to support that whenever possible.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Of course. Nice to see you. We've emailed back and forth, I think, but nice to see you in person. So, okay, Billy, you had a question?
Yes. So for ASMR, for a typical day, when does ASMR start and and does ASMR I forgot the last part of my question, sorry.
That's okay. Well, I'll just tell you, and then maybe if you think of it, just let me know. So it actually is embedded into your class schedule. So for example, I teach 5 sections of AMSR this year, and I have typically from 3 to 6 students per section. So they're very small sections to allow for me to, like, be able to help students that are working on, a million different things. So I have 30 students in the program this year, 30 different projects. So it's really important for there to be a small class size. So I've advocated for at least 5 sections where, I can have one-on-one time with the student. So with our current class schedule, they're meeting 3 times a week. So 2 classes that are 45 minutes and then 1 class that's 75 minutes. So another thing that AMSR teaches you is like how to manage your time, how to come in, know what you're doing, get your work done, kind of have wherewithal when you arrive to class, because I don't have like okay, Billy, here's what you're doing today. Boom, boom, boom. You come in, it's really student driven. So you have to know what you need to accomplish that day. So it's pretty challenging for high school students to know how to do that, but it is embedded into your class schedule. I have, the afternoon program, but most students are able to get things done during the class day. Once you're trained in the lab to work, if you're trained to work safely, and there's, there are things that you can do that aren't dangerous, students can work in the evenings in the lab. We'll allow them to have access on the weekends. So it's kind of amazing to have it on campus at a boarding school, because you have that access to the lab.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm Jonathan Gastura.
I see, yes.
In Bermuda, 13. I was just wondering, what sort of projects do you do in this course?
Right. So, well, tell me, what's the main thing that if you had to pick one area of science, what are you most interested in? I'll give you an example of something real.
I really like aviation and flying, so probably physics.
Okay. So we had a student. Who worked with Sikorsky down at Lockheed Martin, and there's a helicopter called the X-2, which is the fastest helicopter out there. But the challenge with the helicopter is that although it's super fast, the vibration is crazy. So this is the helicopter that has the double, I guess it's double propeller. Is that what it's called? Yeah, double propeller. So they're going in the opposite directions of one another. So it is like up and out. But there's so much vibration that it takes not everyone can fly it. So one student in the lab was developing a model of a rotor that had rare earth magnets on either side. So basically he was not playing around, but he was analyzing the position of the rare earth magnets opposed to one another, and how they balanced the rotor or a piston that was on the inside. So basically it was a rare earth magnet rotor and then a piston on the inside. And essentially he would spin the piston with a drill and then do measurements to see how much, so you can measure if you attach a laser pointer to that piston, and you can, like, if you point it at the wall, you can basically see the laser pointer drop. And then if you change the rare earth magnet, you could see it lift up. So he was doing simple experiments like that, but it was to address a really complicated question. So one of the goals is to allow students to think about big ideas in science, but to create a simple way to test those questions on campus. So just by 3D printing the rotor, by ordering all of the rare earth magnets, getting a drill, using a laser pointer, he was able to actually contribute information to Sikorsky about, like, the position of, the rare earth magnets. Now, of course, there are engineers at Sikorsky who are also doing this. So he's not the only one doing this, but it's just an incredible opportunity for students to get involved in a real question like that.
Amazing, thanks.
You're welcome.
I have to
Oh,
go. Because,
okay, I see that. What you should also know is we do have an aviation class here on campus, and we do have a Redbird flight simulator. So students who are interested in aviation, there's really no other school that has that capability. So keep us on your radar.
Okay.
Oh, bye, Tim. Have a good class. Okay, are there other questions?
Hi, I have another question.
Okay, sure.
I'm also very interested in community service, and I'm curious about can our experiment be connected to community service? I mean, can our experiment be inspired by problems that we see in our everyday life, and can we think about it and just come up with an idea that leads to an experiment?
Absolutely. So that is the beauty of a program like this is it's not a teacher giving students, I mean, of course I give ideas, but that if you have an idea or if you see a problem that you would like to tackle in the community or in your community at home, like that is the perfect inspiration. So for example, I have a student this year who is working in a lab in Seoul. She has been interested in microdust and particulate matter that's present in the atmosphere. And she also is interested in dermatology. I think her mother's a dermatologist in Seoul. And she's created this project where she's exposed tissue culture cells to different types of microdust that are found in the atmosphere in Korea. And so just to understand what the molecular response to that is. So that's an example of a real world question that she applied to, a project in AMSR. So she did a lot of that work here on campus, but then had to return home after the pandemic. But luckily, Seoul had the outbreak really well contained, and she was able to actually go back to work in the lab. And she recently submitted or presented her work to a conference, a virtual conference with her lab there on campus, Ainsley. Yeah, so it's just been incredible. So yes, you're welcome. Of course.
Thank you, sir. Ainsley, I got to drive Ainsley to class. Thank you. Excellent presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Are there other questions? Let's see. Let me check the chat.
I also have a question.
Sure.
So, I want to ask, as usual, to see a student didn't finish their project at the end of the program. Like, can they continue the program, like the project they're doing, even they've entered the college or in the future?
So that has happened. I've had a student, a student who was on campus a couple of years ago, lived down, she actually lives near Princeton, and her mentor was a Princeton professor who was interested in biofilms. And she did a project on acne. So acne is able to form its like cystic acne because that bacteria can form a biofilm. And so she took a molecule that was known to inhibit biofilms in other organisms and tested it on whether it inhibited P. acne. So the bacteria is called propionic I don't remember the genus name, but some P. acne is the shorthand name. So it actually inhibited P. acne quite well in our studies. And I know that she has continued that work. So she went to the University of Michigan, but she's been at home since then, so close to Princeton. So I believe she's been able to continue some of that work. That's a pretty unique situation because she had those connections pre-existing, but it is an example of just like a project that she created totally on her own and was able to continue it. So it's pretty exciting. She actually
Yeah.
used the electron microscope to show that that was a neat project because she grew the bacteria on a grid. So that was radical. So she grew the bacteria on the grid, and then she treated some of the grids with the agent and some without, and you could see the biofilm so clearly on the grid. It was wild. Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Yes.
Actually, that's in one of the newsletters. I think it's in the winter 2019 newsletter. Her name is Avalon Leventhal, and some of those pictures are in the newsletter. So pretty cool.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Of course, of course. Any other questions? Natalia, you may have seen your picture. So Natalia was Dr. Smirnova, I should say, was a mentor for some of our students who were interested in economics research, and so that's a track that has evolved over the years. We used to have a relationship with AIER, so American Institute for Economic Research, until they underwent some structural rearrangement. So we're now working. So Chris Perkins, who Natalia, I believe you know, it mentors those students now here on campus. So we have some students looking at the economic impacts of NPO, so non-pharmaceutical interventions for coronavirus. So analyzing how countries that handled coronaviruses and coronavirus outbreak in different ways, like what the economic impact has been on that. So there is that opportunity for students to do some economics research as well. Oh, okay. Sorry, I had someone coming into the waiting room. Other questions? For student, okay, I have one in the chat. For students who are applying for 10th grade and are currently in advanced math track, okay, how can they join the AMSR program? Should they get accepted to Berkshire? Okay, so for students who are new to Berkshire, that is a situation where, and if you're coming in for the 10th grade, that's a situation where I would definitely want to see, so because it's 10th grade, I would want to see good progress here at Berkshire. So in the first semester of your time at Berkshire, you would come and take, whatever advanced science class or AP class you would want to enroll in. And then in the spring of your sophomore year, that's when we would start discussing maybe some kind of independent research project that could jumpstart your experience in AMSR that could start in the fall. But I would be, I usually don't take new students that are coming into 10th grade. I usually like to see some demonstration of success within our curriculum here at Berkshire. If you're coming in as a junior and because there's a little bit more experience, a little bit more maturity and all of that, then those students I have accepted fresh out of the gate, new students to Berkshire, come on into the program. But the junior, 9th and 10th grade, I usually like to see at least one semester of like really strong work here on campus. Okay, Anouk, does that answer your question? Okay. Other questions? I've learned that you have to wait a minute in Zoom before someone, usually it's like 10 seconds in person. If they don't say anything, it's like, okay, bye. But in Zoom, it takes people a little bit longer to warm up. So if you don't have any more questions, I'd be happy to answer any other things that pop into your mind. Just shoot me an email. I'm the only April here on campus, but it's abirch@berkshireschool.org. Happy to connect with you all more beyond this, but I really thank you. I thank you all for coming. Thank you so much. And I hope you all have a great day. Stay safe. Happy whatever holiday you celebrate. Happy New Year. Let's get this year over and keep well. Thank you so much for coming. Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank
You're
you. It was
welcome.
wonderful.
You're welcome. Thank
holidays.
you. Yeah, thank you. You too. Thank you so much. Okay. Bye. See you later.